Welcome. Good evening, and thank you for joining us today on such short notice. I want to first thank Police Chief Carmen Best, who could not be with us because she is at West Precinct commanding response, and Fire Chief Scoggins for both of their incredible and steadfast leadership today and every day. I want to thank Assistant Chief Cordner for being here, who will also make some remarks and answer questions. I want to address the events that have occurred during today's demonstrations, which have led me to issue 3 emergency orders to protect the health and safety of the people of Seattle. The 3 of us, together with Chief Best, are united in our commitment to protect our communities. Yesterday, Chief Best, Chief Scoggins, and I acknowledged the wrongful and tragic killing of George Floyd. We both, all of us, believe it is right that the officer who killed Mr. Floyd was charged and will be prosecuted. As I said, I believe those who also participated should be held accountable. Today, many across Seattle came together to grieve, to protest, and to commit themselves to the cause of justice. They did so peacefully, for noble values, using a cherished American right. For most of today, the demonstrators were peaceful, and I thank all of those who chose to exercise their right to protest without hurting others. I reached out to some of the organizers of the protests last night and today, and I thank them for leading a peaceful protest. Unfortunately, in the late afternoon, demonstrations downtown by others quickly turned violent and destructive. We have seen this play out across the country. Yesterday and today, I've talked to many mayors across the country who are seeing similar things happen in their own cities. Here in Seattle, demonstrators threw Molotov cocktails at cars and buildings, causing multiple fires. Some threw fireworks into peaceful crowds and at police. And for periods, our firefighters could not access the fires and put them out because it was not safe to do so. We have reports of multiple officers and civilians injured. At this time, we're not aware of any serious injuries. A number SPD vehicles and other vehicles were set on fire. In addition, at least 2 rifles were stolen. 1 was recovered, 1 may be outstanding. I understand the immense rage and grief and sense of betrayal felt by so many in our community and communities across this country. However, the escalated incidents of destruction and violence do not honor Mr. Floyd. His own family has spoken against such violence and has urged everyone to demonstrate peacefully. The criminal acts that took place during today's demonstrations cannot and will not be allowed to continue. They jeopardize the health and safety of all those involved, from those demonstrating peacefully to our first responders to civilians who just happen to be in the area. We will take all steps necessary to protect residents and property of the city. That is a solemn charge of both the Seattle Fire Department and the Seattle Police Department. We have received a number of calls about the events today and last night. To protect health and safety of our residents, after consulting with both chiefs and my cabinet, I have issued the following emergency orders. A proclamation of civil emergency in Seattle related to the downtown demonstrations. An order prohibiting the use of weapons, both formal, like firearms, and informal, like pipes and clubs, throughout the city. And an order establishing a 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew, which is in effect tonight and tomorrow night. This was a difficult decision to make because we in the city and cities across America enjoy the right to come together. I'd remind people that we're still in a stay-home order, so this curfew, what we're urging people to do is please stay home during those hours. If you need to go out to work, you can go out to work. As you've seen, Seattle Police is trying to inform people and educate people first. But people in violation of the order who do not vacate, enforcement action can be taken. Now I'll give remarks to Chief Cordner and then Chief Scoggins, and then we'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This morning, the Seattle Police Department responded to Westlake Park to assist in facilitating a peaceful demonstration today following the tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Alongside the Fire Department, the Seattle Department of Transportation, the Seattle PD has been monitoring the demonstrations to provide assistance, manage traffic impacts, and preserve health and safety. The Westlake demonstration quickly turned violent. Multiple citizens and officers have been injured. Bottles and rocks are consistently being thrown and have been thrown at police, and multiple arrests have been made. Fireworks have been thrown by protesters into the crowd. 2 AR-15 style rifles have been stolen out of patrol cars. One has been recovered, and one is still outstanding. Protesters have set multiple SPD vehicles on fire, and Molotov cocktails have been thrown. Additional protesters accessed I-5 and shut down multiple lanes in downtown. The mayor, as she said, has issued a curfew that began at 5 p.m. We implore all of you to leave the downtown area. If you are a resident of the downtown area, please shelter in place. Thank you, and I'll turn it over now to Fire Chief Scoggins.
Hello, my name is Harold Scoggins, Fire Chief of the Seattle Fire Department. I want to thank Mayor Durkan for her leadership, thank Chief Best for her leadership, and all those out there in the community who are really out there supporting people's right to free speech. I want you to know our firefighters are out there working incredibly hard to keep everyone in this community safe. They have made many vehicle fires across downtown. Trying to get to them has been very challenging for us. I want to thank SPD because they provided us multiple escorts in the downtown area to put these fires out. It's really important that we try to keep this community safe. As I said yesterday, before the demonstrations began, I support exercising the right to free speech and peaceful demonstrations and the need to stand up for what is right. But this is not the way to do it, by causing unnecessary chaos and danger to those who are protesting and those who are in community. This situation has escalated quickly and has become very dangerous. I want the public to know that our firefighters are doing everything they can to keep each and every one of you safe. I have called in additional resources on my team, members of the Seattle Fire Department, staffing additional engines and additional medic units. I also want to thank our neighboring agencies in King County and around the state for the requests that I've put out to bring in additional resources in case there are more fires throughout the night. You may have seen us waiting to respond to fight vehicle fires. I want you to know I have a duty to keep our firefighters safe, and we're waiting to extinguish these fires until we can actually get in and do the good work. And that's why I think it's important our partnership with SPD and the escorts that they have been providing us throughout the day and throughout the evening. I also want to end with reminding those who are starting fires in the downtown area that they have very many unintended consequences. You may be hurt, those protesting may be hurt, those who live, visit, and work here or maybe here right now may be hurt. Businesses are lost and destroyed because of these fires. They spread very quickly, as you've seen on the news around the nation. Additionally, when you block streets, you're blocking our routes for our EMS emergency vehicles. As you heard Chief Cordner say, people have been injured. It has been difficult to get to those who are injured. As you're moving the railings around and the trees and everything else, you're blocking access routes to get people help. And that could be you too. I want to remind everyone that we're all in this together. We're going to get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Gordner and Chief Scoggins. In addition, I want people to understand that I did speak to the governor tonight, and on the recommendation of Chief Best, we did ask for the National Guard to be mobilized strictly in a protective role. They will be unarmed, but will be traveling to the city to provide traffic control, infrastructure protection, and the like. We do not know what time they will arrive, but it will be sometime this evening. In addition, I've received calls from federal authorities. They will be investigating separately any of the destructive fires that have occurred, and those may come under the jurisdiction of federal law. With that, be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Scoggins, and thank you, Chief Gordon. As a reminder to everyone who's attending on the WebEx link today, we will be taking questions in order. We will mute and unmute your microphones. And if you would like to ask Our first question will be from Lily Fowler, Crosscut, followed by Daniel Beekman at Seattle Times. Lily, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks. I am seeing a lot of people commenting on the fact that the curfew was called so last minute, 10 minutes before the actual curfew, and feeling like that was unfair and setting people up. What's your response to that?
So the curfew, two things to that is, the curfew was set at a time at the recommendation of the Seattle Police Department and what it would be necessary to keep people safe. That is evidenced by the actions is we are not using that curfew to set people up or to unnecessarily detain people, arrest people. We're trying to get everyone safely home. So anybody who is in the downtown area, we're urging them to get home safely. We will try to help them do so. This was to ensure that the police could take action if they needed to against those people who were purposely setting fires, looting buildings, smashing cars, and hurting civilians. They've been throwing all sorts of projectiles, and we want to make sure that the police have all the tools they need to stop that type of behavior.
Thank you, Chief, or thank you, Mayor. Our next question will come from Daniel Beekman at Seattle Times, and then we will have a question from Tony in the room at King 5. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Quickly, one question on the protest and then one on the curfew. With regard to the protest, what do you know about the separation or the creation of two groups downtown and the nature of the what seems to have been two different groups, or the protest splitting in some way? And then on the curfew, you mentioned that it applies to downtown. Does it also apply to the rest of the city or not in practice?
Really good questions, Dan. Thank you for asking that question to clarify. The curfew does apply to the entire city. And so if people are out, we'd like them to get home. If people are on their way to work, obviously they can transit to work. The purpose of this is so people stay home and aren't on the streets. Obviously, we're still under a modified stay-home order in the city of Seattle, so people should be staying home unless they're going to a necessary business or otherwise. So the curfew applies citywide. On the question of the demonstrators, I think it's too early to determine the numbers and types of groups that were there, but it is clear that there was a large number of people who came to protest peacefully, that organizers like Andre Taylor and others were able to speak, the crowd was able to march, and they maintained themselves very peacefully. Earlier in the day, we had some marchers who were also peaceful, but then we had many thousands of people flow into downtown who obviously were coming primarily for destruction. And very rapidly, the amount of destruction escalated, and the situation deteriorated quickly, even for the people who came peacefully. I also want to say that I've heard from others, and there were some interviewed on the news that you will have seen, that they did come to demonstrate peacefully. And they themselves feel it was wrong for their events to be hijacked by others and take away the force of their voice by having this end in such destruction and chaos and injury to people.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question will be from Tony, King 5, and followed by Kate Walters, KUOW.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mayor. Jenny Durkan, you just mentioned it there. Do you feel that today's message was lost in the fact that do you feel like there was a larger group of people that were here strictly to just do some damage around the area as opposed to being here to actually support and protest the death of George Floyd?
I think what we will see is that the message of destruction and chaos is not as enduring as the message of hope, justice, and love. And the people who came to demonstrate peacefully did so because they wanted to speak out against something that was very wrong. They wanted to commend us as people and individuals and elected officials to start correcting the course in the city. And I think that voice will continue. I am as committed today and tonight as I was yesterday, and I have been my whole career, to move forward on those issues. And I will not be detoured by people who want to come and cause nothing but destruction in our downtown core. We will hold those people accountable, but I want to make sure the message isn't lost. What happened in Minneapolis was wrong, and the people protesting that are right to protest. The people just coming in and causing destruction, chaos, and looting stores, that does nothing to honor Mr. Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question from Kate Walters at KUOW, followed by Carolyn Bick, South Seattle Emerald. Kate, the floor is yours. We were informed in advance that Kate may have some issues, so we do have her questions here. Let me just pull them up really quickly. In the meantime, Carolyn Bick, if you would like to ask her question, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I actually have a couple of questions. There was at least one Facebook live stream showing police officers using flash bombs and tear gas against what appeared to be peaceful protesters backing up with their hands up. Will these officers' actions be reviewed? And then I also wanted to ask about the video on Nikita Oliver's page showing police officers with their badge numbers covered, and I wanted to know why this was allowed.
So thank you for both those questions, and I meant to address part of that in my opening remarks. There have been a number of videos circulating related to the use of force, both from last night and today. Every one of those videos will be reviewed to make sure that they're in compliance with Seattle Police Department requirements on the use of force. They will be referred to OPA, they will have a supervisory revisal, and any police officer using force inappropriately will be held accountable. We've built a very robust system of reviewing use of force over the last 10 years. I also note that the Office Inspector General was present today at the Emergency Operations Center so that she could observe in live time how the Seattle Police Department was functioning within the Emergency Operations Center with other departments. I will say that the depiction and descriptions on some of the posts that I have seen are inaccurate in that they say that there was just peaceful protests. Last night we also saw that there were a number of people who were acting destructively. They were throwing frozen water bottles, rocks, and incendiary devices at police officers. And each time that officers asked them to move, there were people who resisted. But we obviously are going to review that because we want people to know two things. Number one, you cannot use inappropriate, unlawful activity to destroy businesses and hurt people. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our police officers act appropriately, and we have a system to do so. I talked to Chief Best about that this morning and this afternoon, and she is fully committed to both of those principles. We will protect the people of Seattle, but we also will make sure that our officers act appropriately. I will also add that I have seen the officers take enormous punishment last night and today with a number of things thrown their way and force being used, devices, and fire was not able to access. The fire department was not able to access because it was not safe for them either. And do you have a second question? I think I missed your... Oh, the badge. I'll look into that question. My belief is it was not badge numbers covered up. That is a traditional way that police officers recognize if a police officer's life has been lost. But we will follow up with that and get back to you on that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Carolyn. Questions submitted by Kate Walters. We have three. Number one, what is the one thing you need people waking up Sunday morning who may or may not have been following today's news to know?
I think the number one thing we want people to know is this has been a rough time for Seattle for 2 months. And this period tonight was also a difficult period for Seattle. But we're going to get up tomorrow. We're going to do everything we can to restore the downtown area and property and to keep people safe. And when you get up tomorrow, I want you to be thinking about how do you keep yourself safe and your neighbors safe. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. It's a very dangerous thing still for the city of Seattle. And so please be kind to somebody and compassionate and do your part to make our city whole again.
Second question. One of the releases mentions 2 AR-15 style weapons were stolen and one remains outstanding. Are these weapons loaded when they were stolen and are they able to be shot?
Do you know the answer?
I don't have that information.
We don't have that information, but we will get it back. We'll get it to you.
Okay. Final question. Your request for National Guard support is for 7 days. Are you anticipating more action over the next week?
We don't know the answer to that, but typically you ask for the support for a longer period of time. But we obviously want people to know that we will do what we need to do to keep residents and property safe in the city of Seattle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Gordner and Chief Scoggins. That concludes our Q&A portion. Mayor, would you like to close us out with some final thoughts?
I would. Again, I want to recognize two things. First, for those people who are grieving and who are outraged by the death of Mr. Floyd and what it reflects about the impacts of systemic racism in our society. We stand with you in your right to exercise those protests. But for those who came down to Seattle to do nothing but to cause damage, to hurt property, to loot, to steal, that's not acceptable. We will hold those people accountable and we will make sure that we deter it. Chief Best is sorry that she can't be here personally. Again, she is commanding the operations from the other precinct and command center. But we are united in making sure that we ensure people's right to protest peacefully, but at the same time, we will not allow criminal conduct. Please, everyone, stay safe. We are still in a pandemic. We need you to not go out of your homes unless you need to. We need you to wear your face coverings when you do. We need you to exercise good hygiene. These are two things coming at the same time, which makes it even harder for all of the city to deal with, but I am confident we will get through this. We will get through this together. We will rebuild Seattle. We will come back better, stronger, and more equitable. But I am calling on everyone who came with only the intention of causing chaos and destruction, stay home. Thank you.
Sorry. I just had a couple quick questions, maybe that you can help me answer as well. From some of the arrests that you have you any early indications that they are local people that were arrested or that they might be from out of state? Is there any indication?
I don't have that information. That would be part of
Yeah,
the investigation.
it would be part of the investigation. I talked to a number of mayors today and yesterday, and a number of the arrests in other cities have been from people who have come to the city to cause destructive damage. We don't know whether that's the case here in Seattle or not. We'll obviously look at that, and we'll have an after-action report on that as well.
And then is there any clarification that you can offer? Earlier today, Seattle Police tweeted out their reasoning for why the body cameras were not on last night. And they showed a page, and a lot of the replies still had plenty of questions or doubts about that. Can you kind of explain what that is, why they aren't on?
Yeah, I'll be able to answer that. Seattle has a long-standing law and culture of not believing that police surveillance is appropriate, and police inappropriately gathering intelligence on lawful and peaceful demonstrations is prohibited. And so police department, we do not turn the body cameras on unless we think there's going to be criminal activity or they have to take actions as a police officer. Our policies are written and were well thought out. They were developed with the assistance of a number of people because we do not want people to believe that police are there to surveil and record lawful protests. And so the body cameras were not on, not to hide what was happening, but to respect the right of the protesters.
So they weren't told to turn them off?
No, they were not told to turn them off. They do not activate the body camera unless they're going to be taking some action when they see criminal activity occurring. Thank you very much.